It's time to get your coffee. Snuggle up to a cup of coffee while we look at the load boards and see what kind of madness, what kind of trouble can we get into today. So stay tuned after I blow your ears out with this really loud, extremely annoying long intro. Good morning. It is Friday, February 6th, and we're going to talk about it's Friday. Yay, right? If that's a thing. We're going to talk about some freight stuff, and I know that's intelligent sounding, but humble yourselves. I need to humble myself. I'm nothing. I'm a guy that used to own a truck who got off the road and now helps other people with trucks do what they can while they're spending their much valuable time on the road. So rates have been pretty good. It's kind of nice not fighting for every penny now. And if you tuned in Wednesday or watched the replay, brokers, I read a passage from someone that was a broker that was like, hey man, we're taking a loss right now, which is, I'm not going to say that's good because, you don't need your favorite broker going out of business. But at the same time, CDN Freight Broker, he's been such a great friend and he has some true wisdom, and his brokerage was trying to educate their agents about how most trucks that are on the road right now are taking a loss in the spot market because of rates, and that they needed to educate their customers that when this flips over, which it will, it always does, it's going to be a tough time for everybody in their world, on their side. For us, it's some much needed relief after probably the longest freight recession I've seen. So the game of spot market is sometimes the broker is the winner, sometimes the carrier is the winner. And with the rates that I'm seeing when I'm putting in the rate cons from the company, I'm seeing a lot of good rates. So I have a message for the people that parked their trucks during the freight recession. that's always been a thing, right? That's always been a thing where like, okay, I can't profit anything, so I'm just going to park the truck and work the company side for a minute. And that logic makes sense to me. However, you don't learn how to survive by staying out. Instead of evaluating why you can't stay in business because of the rates, you just bow out, put your truck on hold, put the insurance on hold, and then your truck sits there and rots for 2 years. Um, rubber goes bad, plastic goes bad. Mice move in. If the truck doesn't move, and then when the rates are really good, you haven't maintained the truck, and the truck goes south, and now you're having to sit out when the rates are at their best because you didn't know how to survive when they were at their worst. So I've never agreed with that strategy. I take that back. I tried that strategy for 10 days back in during the COVID shutdowns when you were lucky when I remember Uber. It was funny. I was talking to Sage. He goes, "There's no way that you're seeing $1 a mile on freight out of the Midwest." So I showed him a screenshot of what Uber was trying to move for $1 a mile, and he kind of lost it a little bit, and was like, brokers should be ashamed of these kind of rates because there's no way that a truck can be sustainable on that. So, well, that's the reality of dry van market, especially when it dumps. And I had a little fit, man. I stayed home for 10 days. Between the truck stops not being open and between, I remember walking into a convenience store and they had a box of masks that they were charging $50 for. And that's when it clicked that this whole COVID thing, part of it was, we're going to try to capitalize on this. We're going to spread fear and then charge you $50 for a box of masks because there's a shortage, right? Anyways, I stayed home for 10 days. Jeff and I had a conversation because half the fleet did that. And look, that's a natural reaction. You know what? Screw this. I'm sitting out. But then I thought, okay, what? I needed to move just for my sanity, right? I didn't like my truck just sitting there doing nothing. And the money eventually was going to be needed. So I was like, you know what? What can I do in this market so I'm not totally in the red? And I talked to a millionaire. I have a couple of millionaire friends. And he said, you know what? Every day that you're surviving is a move forward, but you got to move. And I thought, you know what? This is true. So I found a load picking up in Rolla, Missouri, going to Fayetteville, Arkansas. Load of charcoal. Spring freight was starting to move. And I want to say it was about 300 miles. And I forget what I was getting for that, the rate I got for it. And so I booked the load. I knew the shipper. I knew the receiver. Easy gravy run. And the broker called when I was doing my check call and said, yeah, I'm loaded. Hey, do you have another one of these for Wednesday and for Friday? And she's like, yeah. I said, send them both. And I just round tripped it. I stayed busy all week, made decent money. And yeah, half my miles were empty. But I was busy for the whole week. I'm not fighting the load boards. I'm not trying to go anywhere strange. I'm not trying to go to Denver and then trying to get out. I'm not doing anything like that. And the rate per mile justified it. And the rate per day definitely justified it. And you got to remember, my cost per day was a lot lower than most other drivers that are out there. And so that was my advantage. That was my key. And then so I found deals like that. I found, basically gravy runs and just did it that way. And it worked. I didn't have to worry about freeze protect because it was charcoal. I didn't have to worry, yeah, it was heavy, but half my miles were empty. So, saved on fuel there. And, but the important part is I came up with a strategy. But after 10 days, I told my wife, I said, look, whether I'm taking a loss or not, I got to move the truck. Now, there were some other prominent YouTubers that all sat out during that time because they literally said, I cannot afford to fix my truck if it breaks down with these rates. And their answer was to just stay home. And I'm thinking, that blew my mind. And these were influencers, right? If you're running around in any market and you can't afford to fix the truck, that's a problem. It may not be a problem now, but it will be a problem later. Imagine if you owned a pizza restaurant. Your number one source of that pizza restaurant is the oven. I helped open a CC's pizza restaurant, when they first moved to Springfield. I was in my 20s. And they had these ovens that could bake a pizza in like 5 minutes, right? You put in the little conveyor belt and boom, it's done like that. And the district manager mentioned that these ovens were like $10,000, $15,000 a piece. I'm like, wow. He goes, but it's the core of our business. This oven goes down, I don't have a business. So imagine if you owned a pizza restaurant and you couldn't afford either the new oven or to fix the old one. How long would you stay in business? Because eventually it's going to break. So it's not a foreign idea. It's an idea of like, look, if you can't afford to be in business, like, someone offered, basically someone asked if I would lease purchase my truck to them. And I was like, no. And they're like, why? I said, well, can you afford a new turbo if it goes out? Well, how much is a turbo? 10,000. Oh no. I mean, I'll build up the money. Okay. But I don't have the capital to handle that $10,000 payment. I could put on a credit card, but that's not going to help either one of us. You got to have capital. You got to have cash. This argument, cash is king, and who's a great YouTuber, by the way, cash is king or credit is king. I think it's a combination of both. You got to have both. And it's part of owning a business, right? So sitting out a freight recession, instead of learning how to strategize and do what other people aren't willing to do to make the money that rises you above everyone else, that's a better strategy than just sitting at home going, well, sucks out there, so I'm not going to be a part of it. And then you don't learn, right? You don't learn like, oh, I survived the great freight recession of 23, Okay, cool. What did you do? Well, same thing I'm doing now. I'm being efficient with my time. I'm maintaining the truck, and I'm being careful with my money. You don't go out and blow it. If you're making an excess of an extra $10,000 a month net because the rates are so good, don't go out there and blow it. Don't buy the new crap. These new cars and pickups are insanely expensive. Luxury items rot and wither. And if you die of a heart attack, guess what? It gets sold at an auction, at an estate auction. So is it worth it? Is it worth your happiness and stress to buy those things? Anyways. So now that the freight market is starting to show signs of recovery, because we're not going to get all excited just yet, because I don't need everybody flooding, the equipment places, and so used trucks become $100,000 again. We got to be cautious. Enjoy what you're getting if you're getting some good home runs, and put that money back, because all it takes is a black swan event to wipe it all out. And you have to be careful. You're getting some relief. That's how I look at it. Because you could have some natural disaster or some kind of war, and that's going to spike fuel, or it's going to spike supplies. And all it is a drop of a hat from the government that say, hey, this really bad scenario is happening, and then the market responds to that. I mean, look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin has taken a huge dump simply because of what's being said on the internet. That's how much power there is. And what's going on in Minnesota, that is the power of the internet. So all it takes is the right words from the right people to put this back to where it was. And so you got to be cautious of that. Another thing that I've been guilty of, so I don't judge people, is that, hey, now I'm making good money, you get complacent, so you get lazy, you don't run as much. I was guilty of that, to the point that Like Trucking almost said, dude, I don't know if you're a right fit. And we had a conversation, and I started to run, and lo and behold, I had more money. I was working harder, but we get complacent. And I see it in drivers all the time. Well, I made really good money this week, so I'm going to take a break, which is, it's healthy to take a break. But then we start falling into old bad habits. And if you've been parked for the last 2 years, then you probably have some bad habits. So complacency kills. That's just the nature of things. Think about this. I was thinking about this. I was in the shower this morning, and I was sitting there like, it's imagine if you had endless hot water in the wintertime. You would never want to get out. But the water heater determines, you know what, you're uncomfortable now, get out, right? Eventually, comfort disappears, and only your work ethic and discipline survives. Rates are coming up, and we're gonna show that. I'm gonna show the load boards, and you're gonna see what I'm talking about. But first, we're gonna go to comments, right? Scott Rolla, good morning. Hope you're all doing great. I'm doing fine, man. I got my coffee. It's warmed up around here a little bit, and things are great. Desert Okie Pam, good morning. Sean Fairman, checking in NDOC, home of orange trade trailers that don't sell. Might be spring ride, not desirable. I had a plan at one time to buy like 5 X Schneider trailers, and I would be the trailer lease guy here at Like Trucking. But when COVID hit and there was a big trailer shortage, trailers that used to be able to get for 10 grand at Schneider became 50 grand for, a 12-year-old spring ride trailer with issues. So I was like, you know what? I'm out. I blew that. That plan went out the water. What I do miss about the NDOC is, and this is a carbolicious side of me, that, was the breakfast burritos. They had a really good cafe in there. I was at NDOC quite a bit. Met up with Jeff there a few times. Charity, good morning. Charity has had a she's had a rough week, man. Shippers and receivers are on her crap list today for this week. So good to see you. Chief Freeholler, good morning from Los Angeles or Louisiana. Which is it? Probably Louisiana. SST, what's up? Sterling, what's up? Good morning, everyone. Freight Swami, what's up? Sterling's been a member for 39 months. Become a member. Thank you. Rates are crazy big. Orange paying top dollar in Midwest. Yeah, they got to keep up. This is a transitional period when contract rates will become lower than spot rates. And so watch all the owner operators. They, instead of renegotiating their contracts, they abandon the contracts and they come to the spot market side. We see it all the time. And Schneider's ad campaign is funny. I remember I was listening to satellite radio, and one time Schneider was like, "Spot rates got you down. Why don't you come back to Schneider?" It was like, and that's what they do. They lose people to spot rates, and then when spot rates take a dump, and here's the thing: a lot of people don't realize this. When spot rates get so high, what they do, what Schneider does, and what Werner and Swift do, they go to these companies and say, "Hey, Procter and Gamble, guess what? You're paying out the yin yang for shipping. We can do it for $1 less a mile." Knowing that when the spot market takes a dump, their contract rate will actually be paying better than the spot rate. And Schneider anticipates this cycle every single time. So everybody jumps ship. Everybody's quick to jump ship, whether if contracts taking a dump or if spot rates are taking a dump, right? Maybe I should use the term dive. And it's part of the process. Rates are good. Is everyone putting the extra back for the inevitable downfall? That's we were just talking about that, right? Big Orange paying top dollar in Midwest. Of course, that's the place to be. I heard that Snorelord is guaranteeing $4 a mile or he will pay your child support. I've done that. Been there, done that. Anyone can make $5 PL now. Let me see you do it at $1.60 PM, right? Now here's the thing, Freight Swami. People go out of business when the rates were good. I had drivers calling me because I do a little bit of consulting, right? And people would call me, "Hey man, how much for your time?" I said, I'll talk to you. I don't charge for you to talk to me. And then they would just give me a tip, if they felt that I helped them. And it's kind of nice, it's some extra cash, but this one guy called, he was $200,000 in debt. And he was a flatbedder that literally, I don't chain, I don't tarp, and I need to be home every night. I'm like, dude, you're in the wrong. This is why you're $200,000 in debt. And he took advantage of the IDLs and the triple P loans and all that stuff, and couldn't figure out. And I flat out told him, dude, you need to file bankruptcy. It's a wrap. There ain't no rescuing this. And the rates were insane at that time when he told me that. So it's all about personal money management and personal mental management. So think about this: if you can't get stronger if you don't lift weights, right? If you don't put your body through some kind of stress, you don't become stronger. It's the same thing in business. If you don't put yourself through some stress that makes you better, you never get better. And by parking the truck for 2 years, you didn't get better. You just avoided the storm, but then you got nothing at the end of it. I have contract freight close to that rate. I can make it. My name is Nobody. Good morning. Jerome, good morning. Mallory, what's up, Mallory? How you doing? Tom, what's up? Morning from Iowa. Monday and Tuesday, says Gen Z, I made 6,100 on 650 total miles and home both nights. Took that extra dough and spent 3K on truck parts to set my future self up. There you go. I'm holding my breath if this is just because of the recent storms or an actual market change. No, I was seeing the trend before the storm. All the storm did was make everything annoying. Shipments have been delayed. Shipments have been canceled. It's also inventory time. But we should start getting into spring volumes, and we'll look at that on the load boards. The capacity has changed. Trucking companies have gone out of business, and you have the non-domicile CDL issue that's being addressed, and that's taken a lot of the bad players out, which is what's needed. Thor, what's up? Good morning, sir. Are they going up due to the huge swath of bad weather because of companies going out of business or for some other reason? I just answered that, right? I think it's a combination. Look, the storms do create an issue, but it's not as impactful as one might think. You know, it's like hurricanes. You know, there was a time where hurricanes created a lot of wealth for a lot of trucking companies, the aftermath and FEMA stuff. But now, because the projection and predictions that they can do, they can store the warehouses right before a storm. You know, and that, if you notice, the buildup of that storm was insane on social media. It was like the storm of the century, the storm of the, you know, whatever. And it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad. Prepare for, 15 days of no power, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? And I made a joke to somebody. It's like, yeah, this is called January. and I went to Walmart, and it was insane. People were panic buying everything. The meat aisle was empty. The bread aisle was empty. It was insanity. Because social media can whip people up in a frenzy. So yes, that created some demand issues. All it did was make Walmart go, holy crap, we should have ordered 2 trucks, not 1, that kind of thing. But I saw before the storm, before predictions of the storm, that Walmart was paying top dollar to get things moved during the holiday season. If it was going to Walmart DC, you were getting paid pretty much, even on generic water, soda, that kind of stuff. So while there is an element to that, Thor, I don't think it's we'll look at the volumes because the storm's over. I mean, there is some bad weather, but it's nothing to really write home about. It's just typical February. At what point would you buy a new trailer? Current is 2013 Hyundai that cost me about $8,000 in repairs and maintenance last year. Well, it's over 10 years old, so I think when a trailer hits 10 years, that's time to get rid of it. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. Schneider gets away with that, but they have a plethora of money to deal with that. But yeah, $8,000 in repairs could have been a good down payment for a brand new trailer. Louisiana, okay. $8,000 for dry van maintenance is hefty. Perhaps get a 22 and not need to spend a dime besides tires for a couple of years. Yeah, that's. Be willing to pivot. Yes, Mallory, be willing to pivot. You're right on storm rates. Here have been going up since Q3. Storms just inconvenience things. Yes. And that's what I'm seeing too. Because what happens is, let's say Atlanta is a hot market, but then there's a huge storm that comes through. Well, we talked about that. Well, guess what? Everybody's going south. Now, for the trucks that stayed south during that whole thing, they probably lost a little bit of money. Their weekly revenue was probably down quite a bit. Why? Because that was a struggle. Everybody else was doing that. So you have this plethora. It changes the load to truck ratio, and that's essentially what drives rates is the truck to load ratio. If you're just looking at your hood, right? If you're looking at the big picture of logistics and all that, there's way more to it. I'm oversimplifying it, but essentially that's what you're looking at. If you're in Montana and there's 20 trucks for each load, you're not going to get a good rate coming out. It's that simple. So, speaking of which, let's share the screen here and let's go to the weather first thing. Speaking of storms, and we'll check the National Weather Service. There you go. Ohio, a little bit of Indiana, a little bit of Kentucky, and West Virginia are all. And you don't want to be in Virginia, West Virginia right now, or West Virginia mainly. You got winter weather advisories going on here, and then upstate New York, you've got, well, most of New York, you got extremely cold temperatures. A little bit of lake effect snow going on. My sister lives in this area, so she said it's been brutal there lately. And then Michigan's raising their mitt in hand with their weather, and then the UP, of course. But other than that, it's pretty quiet. West has been pretty quiet this year. It's all the crap's been out here. And then what's going on here in Florida? Freeze warning. You got freeze warning in Florida, southern Georgia. So, and then cold weather advisory for the rest of Florida. They're not used to this. So you got to watch your freeze protect. A lot of the brokers that just do freight down there, they don't think about that. They put freeze protect on the Raycon and hope for the best. So, anyways, but yeah, the storms are just inconveniences, and you can capitalize on that. Like right now, if you're in Florida and there's a load going to Ohio, you're probably going to get a little bit more out of it than normal because of the weather. And you mentioned it. If the broker's not paying attention to that, they're not paying attention. Then they might be like, I don't care if it's snowing. Well, then, okay, well, have a nice day. But if they're sitting there at their computer and like, why isn't nobody going to Ohio? This is strange. Well, because there's a big storm system coming through. And so you're going to have to pay a little bit more for that. And so what will either happen is they'll pay a little bit more, or they'll cancel the load and wait till next week if it's not urgent to keep the rate down. Adjustments are made on the fly more than you guys and gals realize. We had one driver that literally booked a load, went to the pickup. Sucks to be you. This load's not ready. Books another load in their parking lot, goes to pick it up. Sucks to be you. This load's not ready. And then finally, the third one, he's able to finally pick up a load. He was making money in tow news than anything else. And I've had a couple of trucks myself that they show up at the shipper and they're like, yeah, this was supposed to go last week. Or, man, this is not supposed to go till next week. We don't know if if we even got anything to load you with. That's happened. There's been a lot of BS. So a lot of that's going on as well. So, all right, this is the 1, 2, 3 load board. Let's go to, I don't know why it does that. Let's go to load availability. And then we'll also look at DAT because I give equal billing. I do promote the 1, 2, 3 load board, but I get a little bit of money for it if you try it out. But I do like the tools. I do use it. It doesn't have the volume DAT has, but who does? Right? Truck stop gets close, but not even they don't. So, and I'm going to Matt. So if you have a load board, you want me to promote it, give me a call. So because I use it, I use all the load boards. So this is for van. California. I'm going to tell you something here. Let's go to DAT2. Okay, let's refresh this. If you're looking at a load board and you're seeing freight going into California, you're probably noticing that the rates are higher on those. You know why? Because the in and out ratio is so screwed up right now in California. You've got 4,300 loads going in and 1,900 coming out. On 123, you have 546 going in and 282 going out. Now, I could dive deep into that and to figure out what's going on. I'm sure, Sonar has something to say about it, and maybe Sage can mention it too, because he pays attention to those things. But on the very bare surface, I'm thinking California is not a great place to go. And so what that's done is that softened Arizona's market, because I was getting good rates out of Arizona in just regular van, and now I'm getting better rates going back to Arizona. Why? Because people are having to come out of Arizona instead of California. Whereas before, you made your money going in Arizona, then take your hit to California from there, and then California, you make your big money coming out. That was a strategy. But like if, here it shows 108 outbound, 155 inbound in Arizona, here it's showing, here they're showing a different ratio. 686. Oh, no, that's Arkansas. Never mind. Arizona, 1,200 going in and 517 coming out. So the West Coast right now is very difficult in van. It is very difficult. So you're either going to take a insanely high rate going into Washington, but then you got to struggle to get out of there, or or you're going to Colorado, or you're going Nevada or Arizona. It's kind of a crap show out here. And yes, California is showing green here, but the in and out ratios are going to keep the rates driven down a little bit. So let's take a look at California. So here's your lane: California to Casa Grande, Arizona, $258 a mile, $1,000 for 388 miles. But you probably took $1.10 to go in, right? And so what you do is you go over here to market rates, and let's do Los Angeles, California to Phoenix, Arizona. It's showing 1380, 1202 on Cargo Chief. Okay. But if we reverse this, it's a little bit lower. $852, which still isn't bad. But that's $850 a day if you get 1,000 to 1,300 the other direction. But notice the negotiation strength is down. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like I said, that there's all kinds of strategies. Let's put this back on van. Let's look at Ohio. Check this out. Ohio to Oklahoma City, $204 a mile, $1,900. But then the outbound's probably not great. And this is for Monday. So you could probably negotiate a little bit more if it's the day of. but your rates coming out of Oklahoma are going to be struggling a little bit, especially out of Oklahoma City. Tulsa's the best place to land in Oklahoma, or Ardmore, because Ardmore you can utilize the Dallas market. Oklahoma City, you're smack down in the middle of either Tulsa or Dallas. $1,800 go to Georgia, $371 a mile. Let's see, North Carolina, $1,500, $429 a mile. Venture Connect. Let's take a look at this one. See what's going on with this one. Look at that. It's a team load. Picks up today in Ohio. Or no, it picks up. Okay, this triggers me a little bit. No, it's only 350 miles, so no, it's not a team load. But this is a night run, right? Picks up at 7 p.m. on Sunday, delivers Monday morning at 6:30 a.m. It's alcohol. That's why it's a higher rate. You got to have the permits to do that. Almost $2 a mile to go to Galena Park, Texas, 20,000 pounds. So now Triple T has this Groveport, Ohio, to Royal Palm Beach, Florida. Okay. Now check this out. This is where you can get aggressive. They're at 3,000. I've been seeing the same exact run go for $4,200 to $4,400 right now. Why? Because it sucks coming out of Florida more than normal, because the in and out ratio, especially if you go to DAT, what's Florida's? 2,700 going in and 1,640 going out. It's not bad. I've seen this where it's 2,000 in and 500 coming out. So be aggressive. Be aggressive on this, because you will deadhead out of there. Or you're going to take $1 a mile to get up to Jacksonville or Savannah or Atlanta. So you got to be aggressive going in. See, this is also the transition time of the 15-day or 30-day averages that you get from these load boards, and they're off a little bit right now. And I'll give you an example. So let's go to DAT and let's look at let's do a search here. Let's do Columbus, Ohio. Come on. Actually, we got Princeton, Illinois. I've got Princeton, Illinois to Jacksonville right now. Let's take out the weight limit. And it's for today. And 450-mile race Jacksonville, which that brings in Atlanta, Miami, and all that. So it's a good spot, right? So you have Wilmington, Illinois to West Palm Beach. That's the highest. Let's sort this by the highest rate. $4,700 to go from Wilmington, Illinois to West Palm Beach. Van with team. It's a team load. The storm has created a bunch of team runs. That and the fact that they're trying to wait, and then next thing you know, it's got to move, right? Here, Uber's got Aurora, Illinois to Sunrise, Florida. $4,500 on a lane that's paying $4,125. It's heavy, but that's it. That's the only bad part about it. Here's another one. Alsip, Illinois to Popka, Florida. $4,250 for a $3,600 lane. 2 pick, 1 drop. Okay, there's some. Edison, New Jersey's. Man, just At least they put in the comments. That's a screwed up load. Here arrive. Bedford Park to Fort Pierce, Florida. Now, they're a little bit under the 15-day, but if I was calling on this load, I'd be like, dude, I need 42. And they'd probably settle at 4, which is still above the 15-day. Transloop has Rosemont, Illinois to Deerfield Beach, Florida. $3,600 on a $4,000 lane. Do not settle for that. 44.5 on the weight. So just kind of keep that in mind. Fort Pierce is home. Nice. Hi, Fennell. Haven't seen you in a minute. All right, so back to Ohio. 1,800 to go, 550 miles. Williamsburg, Ohio to Middle City, East PA. Let's take a look at this load. Picks up today at 1, delivers tomorrow at 2:30. And what's the tolls on this? $288 in tolls. So you got to be aggressive with your pricing on this one. Here's Columbus to Indy, $6 a mile, 632, $1,100. See what this is. I bet you this is probably beer. Tanker endorsed. Okay. Straight through delivery. They got to move this today. The lane normally pays about 700 and change. They're at 11, 43,000 pounds. Now, it might be hazmat, but normally they would say it's hazmat. Here's 205 to go to Texas. They're finally paying to go into Texas now. And they're paying to come out, depending on how you get out. Here's 392 a mile, 2,200 to go from Lima, Ohio to Garner, North Carolina. Cincinnati to Earth City, Missouri. That's St. Louis. Let's click on this. Now, they're a little bit low on this, but that's the nature of this particular broker. But it's alcohol. It's beer. So you have to have a permit in Ohio. I'm not sure to go through Indiana and Illinois. And then you got Missouri, which check your beer permits. $240 mile to go from Painesville, Ohio to Carpentersville, Illinois. Oh, load no longer available. Yeah. Now, here we go. Here's Groveport, Ohio, picking up today, going to Petersburg, Virginia for tomorrow, 5:15 a.m. This is going to be a hard trek because 500 miles. So if you're sitting in Columbus, this might be doable. But if you remember, all that bad weather is through here. You got to go through all of that to get to there, right? So they're putting some money on this. $2,000 on a $1,700 lane. Groveport to Brooksville. That's going to be Walmart. $303 a mile. $3,000 to go 995 miles. Picks up Monday at 5 p.m. and you deliver at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 11th. So you're going to have to run nights for this. 28,000 pounds. Don't be late because it's Walmart. But see, I look at these like these Ohio, Illinois, Lockburn to Bentonville. Let's take a look. I bet you this is beer. No, it just says FAK. Picks up today 8 a.m. So guess what? It's past 8 a.m. on the East Coast. Going to Bentonville for tomorrow at 9 a.m. How many miles is that? 773 miles. So here's the thing. If you take this load, unless you're a super solo or a team, you're going to be late on this load. And if it's Walmart, because that's normally what's in Bentonville, that could be a bad day for you. But look, they've put some money on it. $2,300 on a lane that pays anywhere from $1,600 to $2,000. This is a broker that probably had a really low rate or a shipper that didn't want to come up on the rate. Well, Walmart, they've been putting some money out. So my guess is the broker tried to strangle this, and then now they got to move it. Now they got to throw some money at it and hope that it can get there in time. So whoever books this is going to be inundated with tracking and calls and are you going to make it? Are you going to make it? And that's going to be a tough gig. It's going to be a tough gig to pull that off. I don't think you can do it unless you're a super solo or a team and get there in one shot. Been seeing a lot of that. It's like, oh, that'd be a perfect load if it didn't deliver tomorrow, right? But see, let's go back to that load. So even if this is a 2-day run, let's say that you get the appointment done for Saturday. 2 days, $2,300 in van. That's still $1,100 a day. That's pretty good. I mean, that's my perception. And there's going to be people that will take that load and be tempted to unplug the ELD and do all that. Or PC in the traffic jams. Don't do that either. So a lot of good freight coming out. And then if you look over here, let's go to Loadboard for Ohio. $2,400 going in and $3,600 coming out. So let's take that one out here. Proceed. Let's take a look at what's outbound in Ohio. 3,600, 30 loads. Let's see what the highest paying load is coming out of Ohio in van. 6,300 to go to Washington. 6,200 to go to Nevada. Now, here's what I'm talking about. So they're paying good money to go out west for a change. Why is that? Because the West kind of sucks right now. California sucks. Washington really sucks. And Oregon, and you see that in the dashboard here on DAT, right? So let's look at Arizona. It's got nothing. California, in and out ratios way unbalanced. Let's go to Washington, Oregon. Now, Oregon has more out than in. That's interesting, but not much. 641 versus 532. And then Washington's got 941 in and 554 out. Now, you could probably make some money running up and down I-5, but you're going to take a hit somewhere. So that's why you see that, right? So let's go back to search. Yeah, it's all west. It's all west, right? That's where the big money is. Now, here we go. It's 4,500 to go from Twinsburg, Ohio to Lawton, Oklahoma. Landstar. It's a team load. Team loads have a lot of money on them too. Here we go. Cincinnati to Jacksonville, $4,200. Another team load. Loads at 8 a.m. to deliver straight through. Straps or load bars require U.S. assistant, email, MC number, no rates, no solos. Why? Because they got to go 801 miles in one shot. $4,000 to go from Columbus to Flagstaff. That's Nolan. That's a legit broker. Pick up in Lockburn, Ohio, 10:30. Delivery Flagstaff, Arizona, 8 a.m. on Monday. So there you go. $4,000 on a $3,200 lane. Why? Because it's going to suck to come out of Arizona, right? A couple of big bangers going to Phoenix, $4,000. That's the highest I've seen that. $4,000 to go to Miami from Cincinnati. So, I mean, the money's out there if you're in the right place. Now, let's go back to here. So, actually, let's go to dashboard. Let's go to Florida. Let's go to outbound in Florida. So, let's click on outbound Florida. And we'll replace the Ohio search. 1,800 loads coming out for today. All right, what's the highest paying load? Highest rate. $35,000 to go to California. I bet you that's a typo. Let's take a look at that. I'd love to call in this loan and say, well, you've got it posted for $35,000. I'll do it. I won't even negotiate that. I'm sorry, sir. We'll have to change the posting. Okay. Well, I'm not going out there then. I mean, you're looking at like $1.70 to come out of Florida to go to Oregon, $1.58, which that's high. Usually these are $1.10s, $1.20s, 99 cents. They are trying to get trucks out west. That's what this is. Right? There's not one that's going. Here's Colorado. That's still west. 203 a mile to go from Jacksonville to Avondale, Colorado. This is Landstar. It is Colorado, so there's that aspect. Now, I'll let you guys know something here. So, where is it? Albuquerque. We had a truck that went to Albuquerque, and you know what? He did pretty good coming out of there. I was surprised. Actually did pretty good for a daily rate. All of it's west. Here's West Virginia. Bradenton, Florida. 265 mile to go to West Virginia. $2,700. 24-hour drop trailer at shipper, driver assist, multiple deliveries. So yeah, this is not, there's something to that. It's 1,000 more than the 15-day on that. Plus you got the weather to deal with. Long Island, New York, 273 mile to go from Jacksonville to Long Island. Would you do that? 273 a mile. Loads out of Garden City, Georgia. So that throws that deadhead off. That throws that rate per mile off. How much does that throw that off? Let's see. How far is it from Jacksonville, Florida to Garden City, Georgia? That adds 140 miles to the trip. Shame. Shame, shame, shame. So if you do the math, let's say you're not a negotiator and you do it for the 2,600 now, and you're sitting in Jacksonville. So 26, no, hold on. So 951 miles plus 140. That's 1,091 a mile, or 1,091 miles. Divide that. 238 a mile. to go to Long Island, it's not as tempting now, is it? Versus the 273. That's why you can't get caught up on the rate per mile, because the brokers will manipulate that just by simply changing the deadhead on it. And if you're not doing your math, look, I recommend every driver, if you're sitting in your truck parked and you're trying to book a load, have a calculator right there in front of you. You know, people make fun of me for having two phones, but man, that was a huge advantage, because while I'm on the phone with the broker, I can go to my other phone and just check the Googles, because a lot of them don't put the right cities, right? And I can be calculating on the fly, and it was a good advantage. So have some kind of device, calculator or a tablet or something that you can utilize when you're trying to book freight for incidences like this. Now, at least they put that in the comments, whereas a lot of times you call, hey, I'm looking at your load from Jacksonville to Long Island. Well, it's actually picking up in Garden City, Georgia. And then you have to pause and be like, okay, well, how far is that from Jacksonville? 140 miles. It picks up in an hour. Well, I can't make it now. I would have never called on this load had you let me know that it was actually 140-mile deadhead. I'm looking for something right now, right here, right where I'm at. You wasted my time and I wasted yours. So I don't understand why they had to do that. Now, a 50-mile radius, a 30-mile radius, I can see that. But 140-mile difference, that's just stupid, right? And I've yet to have a broker explain that to me, that's a good business practice. I've yet to have someone explain that to me. Like I said, like, for example, if you're doing Springfield, Missouri, you can do Springfield, Nixa, Ozark, Bodark. And I understand that, right? If something actually picks up in Bodark, no one knows where that is, but everybody knows where Springfield is. Okay, then I could see that, because that's only a 20-mile difference. But if you had a load that picked up in Springfield and you posted it as St. Louis or Sullivan, Missouri, or Joplin or Neosho, well, then you're adding over 100 miles to that, and then that kills it. There's no reason for that, right? So, you know, we've gone over an hour on this. Now, notice that all these locations, with the exception of this Doral, Florida, St. Louis, are all going to bad areas, right? So now, but we're still seeing $1.83 to go to St. Louis out of Florida. 3 drops. There you go. That's why. But if the 3 drops are all next to each other and you get this done in 2 days, that's still $1,100 a day to come out of Florida for van. So depending on the drops, I would do this load. So, you know, there you go, right? Anyways, let's take a look at reefer. Reefer's been on fire here lately. Look at that. Look at all the green. My buddy Tom, who's in this chat, you know, he's probably doing pretty good right now, right? Some good in and out ratios all over the place. And you've got some of the western states showing yellow, showing some decent outbound numbers. Nevada's still stuck up here, but New Mexico's red. You know, for a while, New Mexico was green for a minute in the reefer world, and now they're red. So now with a low board this small, it could be because one broker lost one shipper, and so a lot of loads aren't posted now on the 123 load board, right? So just be aware of that. But so what they do is you go to another load board. Let's look at the dashboard and let's put reefer in here. Take out van. And then we go scroll down to New Mexico. 192 in and 100 coming out. So it's not wrong. Right? California is still showing the same kind of ratio as van. So just, but then Arizona's got 151 outbound. New Mexico's only got 33 here. So what's Arizona doing on DAT? 798 in and 601 out. So not great, but better than van, right? But again, California is all discombobulated, so that's affecting things. Now, come harvest season, that's going to change. All right. So look at flatbed and step deck, and then I got to get to work, guys and gals. Thank you for watching. If you're watching the replay, hit the thumbs up. Even if you're not watching replay, hit the thumbs up. Hit the thumbs down. Teach me a lesson that I'm not good. All right. Use your anger for good things instead of bad things, right? Now, 1, 2, 3 Loadboard, their volume really shines on the flatbed side. Look, 1,400 loads coming out of Mississippi, 2,000 loads coming out of Alabama, 950 coming out of Georgia. So, West Coast is actually shipping some stuff on the flatbed and step deck. So, if we go back over here, let's replace that with flatbed. Take out reefer. Look at this. No, California's still janky. But look at Alabama, 3,800 loads coming out. Arkansas, 2,600 loads coming out. Georgia's about even. See what Mississippi's doing. 271 in and 2,300 coming out of Mississippi. So, anyways, you know the routine. 48065 if you want to try the Loadboard for free for 30 days. Tell them I sent you. If you want to support the channel, all the information is down there. Hopefully we'll see you at Matt's this year. I'm going to be at Matt's. Jeff Like is going to be at Matt's. Like Trucking is going to be at Matt's. And, come say hi and, buy us a coffee, or we'll buy you a coffee, one or the other. And it'll be a good time. So I appreciate everybody that supports the channel. I know I haven't been good about lives, but hey, life calls, work calls, and so I gotta, this doesn't pay the bills enough, so I gotta do the stuff that really pays my bills. So with that being said, strength for today, over tomorrow. Be careful, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Peace out.